different stakeholders, both within and outside the country. Year in, year out, Nigeria has continued to decline in its global corruption ranking despite efforts by government in its anti-corruption crusade. In a latest report for the 2013 World Global Corruption Ranking, as released by a group that calls itself Nigerian Transparency Group, currently ranks Nigeria as the 8th most corrupt country in the world, trailing behind other countries like Mexico, Colombia, among others. Now, Nigeria's political parties and the police topped the 2 most corrupt public institutions, according to the report, and the consequences of this could be far-reaching. So this morning from our Lagos studio, we shall be assessing this report with a view to justifying the credibility of the report and the actual state of corruption in Nigeria. And I have with me someone who's been following developments in almost all sectors of the economy. Babatunde Olalere is a public policy analyst. He's also a politician. You're welcome, sir. We're glad to have you on Kaakaki Studio.
No, Colin, it's always a pleasure to be on your program. Thank you.
All right. It's a pleasure having you too. Let's look at this report. Generally, overall, we'll look at the Transparency International report over the years. In 2011, for instance, Nigeria was ranked 143rd most corrupt country in the world. In 2012, the country moved to the 35th position. And now, this group, calls itself Nigerian Transparency Group, has come up with a report, 2013, that's the latest report, and it's ranking Nigeria as the 8th most corrupt country in the world. I'm just wondering, based on this report, what exactly do you think?
Well, the thing you have to ask yourself is what happened between 2012 and 2013 to earn such a massive jump of over 100 points on the corruption index. And the answer to that lies in the origin of this group. Transparency in Nigeria, they call themselves. Nobody knows who they are. I've asked around. Nobody knows who the trustees, the operators of the group are. They're totally unknown. Even Transparency International have on their website disowned this group and said that they have nothing to do with them, they don't know them, okay, and that they do not represent their interests in Nigeria. All right, so it does beg the question whether perhaps this group is one of those ghost groups that suddenly crops up every time there is some political issue or some kind of political tussle in Nigeria. You know the type: concerned citizens or concerned indigenes or concerned patriots. You know those type of groups that crop up on the pages of newspapers who are completely faceless. And it just is interesting that this purported report came out on the 8th of July, around the time when the River State imbroglio came out into the open. So I don't know. I'm really not sure how much stock to place in that report.
Now, whether or not this group is recognized or not, what is important?
It's not a matter of recognition. Don't muddle things up. Yeah. It's not a matter of recognition.
No,
it's a matter of the credibility of that report.
Okay, credibility or otherwise. But this group is a group that is based in Nigeria with the members.
We don't know who they are.
Nigerian.
We don't know whether they're based in Nigeria.
The group says it's a Nigerian transparency.
Well,
so let's look at being.
Anybody could therefore, by your analogy, anybody could therefore just say that, look, I'm the president of Nigeria, and because I've said I'm the president of Nigeria, then you must take it at face value.
They haven't said they are president, but they have, based on what is going on, come up with a report. So let's look at this report critically. If this group is in Nigeria and they are coming up with this report, isn't it illogical to say that this group may be, because they are closer to Nigeria, they are in here, they already understand what the goings on, and the report may
he who comes to equity must do so with clean hands. All right? If they're saying that there is no transparency in Nigeria, there should be transparency in their dealings. If they're advocating for transparency, then let them start with themselves. Who are they? Let's know who they are. Let's start with that. We know who Transparency International is. We know who the promoters of the organization are. We know there's a German. We know there's Obasanjo was a founding member, and we know who most of the other members are. It's all transparent. It's on their website. Who are these guys? I don't want to discuss a report by a faceless organization that is known to nobody. That's even Transparency International, whom the whole world knows, has denied.
All right, you are a Nigerian.
Yes.
By your own assessment, would you say corruption is on the increase or on the decrease?
Corruption is a problem in Nigeria. It's a very, very serious problem. And it's something that we must not discount. Okay? And it's something that we must not play politics with. I really don't believe in playing politics with corruption. I think that we must confront the corruption problem head on. I think that there has been a hiatus in the fight against corruption since the Obasanjo administration ended. And I think that we need to return to those halcyon days in the fight against corruption.
Okay, back to this report. Even though you don't want to discuss this report, but there are certain issues they have thrown up which I want us to look at critically. Now, first, analyzing, apart from Nigeria being the eighth international, the eighth most corrupt country in the world, according to this report. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Now, they also try to place public institutions in perspective to look at where they are ranked. And out of the public institutions they analyzed, we have two coming tops in the corruption index. Now, one is political parties. What exactly, you are a politician, and that's why I'm putting this to you. What exactly do you make of this?
This is the reason why I say that this report and this organization needs to be scrutinized properly, because if you're talking about corruption, and the first thing that comes to mind is to examine political parties rather than public institutions, rather than statutory public institutions, then there is a problem, because obviously this is politically motivated. And this is the reason why I really don't want to discuss this report. I'd rather discuss the issue of corruption in general, rather than give any credence or any mileage to this strange, mysterious report from a faceless body. Okay. You belong to a political party in Nigeria. Is there corruption or not in political party system? Well, look, at the end of the day, political parties are operated by people. Okay? And if individuals in those political parties are corrupt, of course they will corrupt the system. They'll corrupt the organizations in which they are operating. So yes, to that extent, one might say that there is corruption in Nigerian political parties. But that's not really of as much concern to me as the way that corruption translates to statutory public bodies. Because that's when it really begins to affect the people. Okay? And I have a problem with that. I have a very serious problem with the idea that funds are, for instance, allocated to education, and then you find that education is not really happening, and the guys who are in charge of those funds are getting richer and fatter, and they're getting more homes in Dubai and more homes in London and more homes in the US, but the very project which they've been saddled with, which they've been given responsibility for, begins to fail. And you have situations like in Lagos State where LASU that used to be free is suddenly costing 250,000 naira per annum minimum to send students to. Meaning that civil servants in Lagos, as a result of this corruption, can no longer afford to send their children to the only state-owned university in Lagos State. That's corruption. And that is where it begins to affect the people. And that's where I have a problem with it. Okay, and that's what we need to be focusing our attention on. How corruption affects the ordinary Nigerian citizen, tax-paying or not. All right, let's look at also some of the issues that was raised by this group. The police came second, trailing behind the political parties according to their report. Now, what would you say about this, despite all effort by government to curb corruption? Again, this demonstrates that this report is half-baked, okay, because you cannot say the police is corrupt when you don't actually examine the causes for that corruption. Okay? In England, a police constable is paid roughly about £33,000 per annum. This means that within 6 to 7 years they can afford to buy their, in fact within the first year, if they can find a banking institution that's happy enough to give them a mortgage, they can afford to buy their own home. I don't think a Nigerian constable can say the same. I don't think so. Not on this sort of salary that they're being paid at the moment. And it's costing us too much to not have a happy policeman okay, securing us, is costing us way too much. Paying them cheap wages is costing us a lot more than it should. We should pay the Nigerian police living wages and then see whether corruption continues to be an issue in that institution. Every institution, everywhere where you pay low wages, there will always be corruption issues because people have to feed any which way.
All right, now still talking about public institutions according to this latest report by this group. Now, interestingly, the National Assembly, meaning the legislature, which is supposed to be making laws for the people, is ranked the 4th most corrupt institution in Nigeria. And I'm wondering, what do you make of this, and what is the implication of this on Nigeria's democracy?
Again, this is where I have a problem with this report, because it's obviously not being put together by professionals. It's obviously not being put together by people with the interest of Nigerians at heart. I personally think that the House of Representatives, by reason of their actions over this current House of Representatives especially, is the single most corrupt institution in Nigeria. It is. I mean, we all saw the Lawan episode, the Farouk Lawan episode, where the gentleman engaged in cap banking, collected a bribe from Mr. Femi Otedola and promptly stuffed the cash, $620,000 in cash, in his cap. I have a problem with the House of Representatives confronted with the testimony of Mr. Otedola that will then turn around and attempt to sweep that issue under the carpet and attempt to exonerate Mr. Lawan until the police and the public, pressurize them to the point where they had to stand him down as the head of the House committee that he was heading at the time. Now, I don't understand why it is that an organization that calls itself Transparency in Nigeria would not see that the most corrupt institution would have to be the one that is supposed to be making laws to stop corruption and is itself corrupt. I don't understand why they don't see that.
Now, taking a look at all of this, okay, fine, you don't agree with this report, but now you are having a different view from their own assertion. But then, looking at all of this, my worry is, will this not affect Nigeria's dream of becoming one of the most should I say, one of the countries, at the top economic level in year 2020,
Look, forget all those things.
Yes.
Year 2010, year 2020.
Yes, when you look at the vision of Nigeria,
forget all those things.
One of the top economic players in 2020.
We have to be realistic.
Is this achievable?
We have to be realistic, and we have to be focused. Okay? I heard somebody on one of your programs on Wednesday talking about the way Nigerian leaders parrot on about Singapore as a model, as their model for development. And, I recall that a particular state governor, who is regarded as, in my opinion, erroneously regarded as a progressive governor, I recall that he famously went on a trip to this Singapore and came back, raving and ranting about how great Singapore was and how, his state was going to catch up to Singapore and so on. Now, the Singapore we're talking about, in terms of population and landmass, is about half, in terms of landmass, is about half the size of the state of this gentleman governor. Okay? It's also, in terms of population, about a quarter of the size of this gentleman's state. Yet Singapore, with no known natural resources, okay, happens to be one of the world's top economies. Based on what? The fact that they spent money on education, all right, on educating their young people, and they've continued to do so. They've never stopped, all right. They've spent money on public services. They've spent money on public infrastructure. They've spent money on attracting industry into their country. They spent money on their ports, so that one of the most efficient seaports in the world today is the port at Singapore. All right. Now, all this happened because they had a leader who was pragmatic, who didn't engage in empty sloganeering, okay, who simply buckled down and went to work. And that's what we need in Nigeria now, people who are ready to work rather than just talk. All right. And that's the problem, really. People talk, and as soon as people begin to buy their line, they just revert back to their default their default states, which is to steal and plunder state resources and use them for their own personal selfish ends rather than for the people who are paying the taxes and for whom the resources are meant.
So what does that say about this vision of achieving 2020?
Again, I say unto you, forget 2020, forget those slogans, forget all those things. What we need from our leaders is for them to buckle down and start working instead of talking. I frankly don't want to hear any more talk. If anybody says again 2020, I believe I could get violent and smash them over the head with an iPad.
As long as you don't get violent with me here. Okay, let's look at, we're going back to this report because we have to look at specifically issues that were raised in this report. One of these issues is that the military, religious bodies, and of course the media ranked the three least corrupt institutions.
That's not true. The media is one of the most corrupt institutions. The media is one of the most, I say that without fear of contradiction. The media is one of the most corrupt institutions in Nigeria. Okay? The alteration of public perception, taking it away from actual reality and presenting people with a false image of the country. Okay.
How is the alteration done? Now when you come to a broadcast station like this, whatever you say goes on air, either live or recorded, and who does the alteration? How that
it's mostly the print media. Mostly it's the print media. I mean, this report that we're discussing is an example of the corruption of the media.
How?
All right? Now,
that a group releases a report and the media takes it up and publishes it. How is that corruption?
This group, okay, has come up and produced this report. Prior to this report, had you ever heard of this group before? No. Nobody had. I hadn't. You hadn't. Nobody in the media had ever heard of this group before this report. Alright? Now they've come around and they've produced this report. And nobody has questioned, who are they? Where are they coming from? Okay? Obviously, this report, since the 8th of July, since it came out on the 8th of July, has been given unbelievable mileage in the print media, forcing you guys in broadcast media to start discussing it, because everywhere you look they're talking about transparency in Nigeria. Nigeria is ranked 8th. You know, that's a sensational headline. Nigeria ranks 8th on the World Corruption Index. And then you ask yourself, who created that index? Who are these people? And nobody till date has been able to point to one member of this Transparency in Nigeria group. But like I said earlier, we know who the guys in Transparency International are. We know who they are. We know that President Obasanjo was the
essence of discussing this is to find out the credibility or otherwise of this report. And that's the essence of
by discussing it, the very fact that we're discussing it is giving it undue mileage.
All right, let's go down to other issues that were raised. Now, the religious bodies also ranked the least, you know, in this index. And then I'm just wondering if you think we're looking at a solution now to this problem. If you do agree that there is corruption, whether or not you believe in this report, both of us do agree that there is corruption and that something has to be done. You said the leaders should start working and not talking this time around. So how do we begin to resolve this problem to end corruption in Nigeria?
Well, one of the things I like about...
Would prayers also solve the problem if religious bodies are ranked least?
One of the things I like about the current administration at the federal level is the fact that they have kept working, regardless of all the stones and sticks that people have thrown at them since 2011. They have kept working. In the area of power, there has been deregulation. Distribution companies have been sold. IPP licenses have been issued. The NIPP project, 10 new power stations, that's almost complete now. Okay, the gas master plan is in full flow. Okay. States have been receiving their funds in terms of their federal allocations. Nothing has been withheld. Okay, and there appears to be a modicum of freedom in the public space for people to comment on issues that the federal government is working on, that the federal government is not, what the federal government is doing, what the federal government is not doing. Okay, people have the freedom. There's freedom of expression. Okay, there's press freedom. All right, and that's one step towards achieving a corrupt-free country. So in terms of actual work being done, I think this administration, as maligned as it is, I think this administration is doing an excellent job.
So is there hope of having a zero corruption in Nigeria?
Eventually, yes. Eventually, I think we'll get there. I mean, as part of the indication, in my opinion, that this current House of Representatives is the most corrupt institution in Nigeria, the current chairman of the EFCC put forward a budget in 2011 to this House of about 6-point-something billion, and it was turned down, flat. They did not approve it. Okay? Now, how do you expect the EFCC to fight corruption in official corridors when they don't have the funds to do it? If they can't find the money to send operatives to, say for instance, to hire a private jet at short notice, to go into one of the far north states or one of the far east states, okay, to go and arrest a commissioner for finance who's assisting the governor to pilfer state funds, then, you know, they can't operate, they can't work. Sometimes they have to make arrests at very short notice because, you know, the targets of the arrest may have heard and may have begun making plans to skip town. Now, if they don't have the budget, if they don't have the funds to do all these things, how are they going to fight corruption? By ensuring that the anti-corruption agencies are underfunded, this current House of Representatives is encouraging corruption in Nigeria.
Alright, we just have to leave it at that. We must thank you so much for your time. We've been taking a look at Nigeria and the anti-corruption war, and my guest has been Babatunde Gbadamosi, a public policy analyst and also a politician. He actually does not agree with this recent report released by the Nigerian Transparency Group. This group just released this report talking about public institutions that are corrupt and ranking Nigeria as the most corrupt country in the world. But he does agree that there is corruption, and the leaders should start working now and talk less to ensure that Nigeria gets its dream at the end of the day, becomes one of the most economic players in the world, top one at that. Thank you so much once again for your time.
Thank you, Nkoli. It's been a pleasure, as always.
You see Kaakaki, the African voice. We're taking you back to Abuja now for the concluding part of the program. Thank you so much for always investing your time with us. My name is Nkoli Omo. Have a wonderful day.